Hey guys, Burger Boy here. Welcome back to a new style of video. Today, my friend Trash Bandit, aka Rack here. Say hey, Rack.
Hello.
Rack here is going to be judging whether or not a Yu-Gi-Oh card is good or not. Rack, you've played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh with me before, right?
Yep.
And that's pretty much all you know about Yu-Gi-Oh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hopefully you do a good job here. I hope I can trust your judgment on whether you think these cards are good or not. I've got 10 staple cards here that are famously known of being really good or really bad. So we're going to go through them one at a time, and you're just going to, I'm going to explain the effect, and you're going to let me know whether you think they are good or not, and I will explain if you are right or wrong. So
Alrighty.
the first card we have for you here is a very famous card. This one's called Max C. So its ability says that during either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, immediately draw a card. You can only use one Max C per turn. So what do you think about this card?
That sounds good to me.
You to explain why you think that?
Hmm.
So the hint to it be is in the near the end of the first sentence. So where it says each time your opponent special summons a monster, brackets monsters, immediately draw a card. Now, special summoning is always happening in every single deck you can imagine. Like
Mm-hmm.
99.9% of decks revolve around special summoning, which means summoning monsters in terms of effects by using monsters' own effects, spells, traps, etc. So, because it's happening a lot and it lets you draw a card for every single time your opponent special summons, then you
Mm-hmm.
can draw a card. And having as much card advantage as possible over your opponent is what you want in Yu-Gi-Oh! So you are absolutely correct in saying that this is a good card. This card is actually so good that it's banned in the TCG. So here in America and everywhere else except Japan, really, you can't play this card in tournament decks. It's banned. That's how good it is.
Yes.
But in Master Duel, you can play three. And in the OCG, the original card game, or sorry, the official card game in Japan, you're also allowed to play three. All right, second card. This one's called Mirror Force. It's a trap, which means you can activate it in response to your opponent doing something. So this card says activate only when an opponent's monster declares an attack. Destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls.
That sounds really good.
Yes, that would be correct, but this card can only work if your opponent is not playing any what we call back row destruction. So obviously you would put this face down
Oh.
in your spell and trap zone. And if your opponent isn't playing any cards that can destroy spells or traps on the field, then this card could be really good. But because a lot of decks revolve around trying to clear your opponent's board before going into attack, Mirror Force is something not a lot of people play anymore. It gets played a lot during casuals, like just for fun, but you wouldn't see this in tournament play a whole lot.
I guess that
So
makes.
you're half right. So I'll give you half a point. If this was anybody else, I would say they were wrong in saying it was good, but because you know very little about Yu-Gi-Oh other than playing with me, and it's only been a few times.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm giving you half a point. So it's good, but only assuming your opponent isn't playing any cards that can destroy your set spells and traps, like Harpy's Feather Duster or any monsters that have destruction effects. And there are a lot of monsters, spells, and traps with destruction effects out there. So it's very rare you'll ever get a chance for Mirror Force to go off ever. So that's why no one really plays it.
Oh.
Okay, our next one we have is this one here. This card is called Infinite Impermanence. It is a trap card, and it says if you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. Target a face-up monster your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn, and negate means cancel them out, they can't use them. And if this card was set before activation and is on the field when it resolves, for the rest of the turn, all other spell and traps in this column are negated.
I think that sounds pretty good.
Yes, you'd be correct. This card is extremely good. Almost every deck tries to play a card like this. So this is called a hand trap, where it says if you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. So Max C is like this too. So it lets you activate the card from your hand during your opponent's turn. So
Oh,
any kind of hand trap like that, where you can interrupt your opponent's plays, especially when it comes to negation, is really, really good. So yes, you're correct. This card is really good, and
that's,
some people want it to be limited. I've heard some people say it, but I'm not one of those people. I think it's totally fine at at 3. There are ways around it. Of course, you could, negate this one.
mm-hmm.
It's that easy, but it can be very annoying for a lot of players, especially if they're going first and then they didn't draw any cards that can negate infinite impermanence on their first turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're going to take a look at this card. This is another monster. This is Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. When a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, quick effect, you can discard this card and negate that effect. And these are the 3 things that it can negate. Adding a card from the deck to the hand, so either by searching or drawing, special summon from the deck, or send a card from the deck to the graveyard, and you can only use this effect of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring once per turn.
That sounds pretty good to me, I think.
Yes, you are also correct on this one. This card is also a hand trap. It means it can be activated during your opponent's turn. So let's say if you were playing against me and I wanted to activate a card that let me draw, and you had this, you could play that, and then I'm not allowed to draw that card. Or if I wanted to special summon a monster from my deck, I can't do it. And if I wanted to dump a card in the graveyard from the deck, uh, that would also negate. So it
Hmm.
has 3 different conditions where it can negate, and usually cards only have one, but this card is like playing 3 negations in one card. And you can play
Oh,
3 of these at once, so you have 9 possible negations if you're playing 3 of them.
oh, wow.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I did mention this card before. This is Pot of Greed. Draw 2 cards.
That is a really good card, if I remember correctly.
So remember what I said about drawing cards?
Mm-hmm.
Any amount of getting anything that lets you draw is automatically good.
Yeah.
With some condition, but 90% of the time, if you're drawing cards, you're golden. But you are right, Pot of Greed is good. And in fact, it is so good,
Yeah.
it is banned.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes, this card has been banned pretty much since 2005, I think.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why this card is so good is because remember in all these other cards, they always say once per turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
This card does not say that. So if you were allowed to play 3 Pot of Greeds in your deck, it's possible you could open up with a Pot of Greed in your hand, play it, and then it sends it to the grave, and then you draw 2, and that's what's called +1 card advantage against your opponent on turn 1, because you had to discard, but you're picking up 2, so now you have 6. So now you have 1 up on your opponent. And let's say that one of those 2 cards you picked up was another Pot of Greed.
Oh,
You
jeez.
discard it, and then you pick up 2 more. And then let's say one of those is a Pot of Greed, you discard it, pick up 2 more. So now you have +6. No, you have +3 card advantage against your opponent on turn 1. Yeah, and it's not limited. It wasn't limited before. And there are several spells, monsters, traps, etc. that let you pull spells back out of the grave and put them back in your hand. So you could just loop this card from your hand to the grave over and over and over again and just dig through your entire deck all in one turn. And another thing that makes it broken is there's no cost. Because other
Oh,
cards will say discard a card and then play this, or then you can draw, or discard a card and then you can special summon, or so and so, or discard this card and add a card to your hand from your deck, yada yada. This card also has no cost to pay, so you're not like sacrificing anything to play this. So There is no possible way that this card can not be bad for you. And even finding a way to what's called an errata, which means release a new printing of the card with new card text, new effect to fix it being broken. There's almost no way you'd be able to make this card not broken, even if it was at 1 and it had a once per turn and a pay for cost, because that's how broken it is. Drawing 2 is crazy. So yes, you are
Yeah.
correct. Pot of Greed is really good.
Mhm.
All right, here we have Hinotama. Inflict 500 damage to your opponent.
That doesn't sound too good.
That is correct. And would you like to explain why you think that?
It's just 500 damage.
Exactly. And how much life points do you have in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh?
7,000?
Close, 8,000. 500 is so little, it barely matters, and there are some effects that will benefit you by paying life points. Even though this has no once per turn, you could put 3 in this deck, and if you open up with 3, you could burn your opponent for 1,500, and although that is a lot, and that puts them at 6,500, there are way better burn effects. Like, do you remember DD Dynamite, me using that against you?
Oh, yeah.
It would deal you 400 damage, or 300, sorry, 300 damage for every card banished, and I was able to like stack in like 40 banished cards and then just wipe you out with 12,000 damage.
Yeah, you absolutely destroyed me.
Yeah, so this is a far, far, far more inferior DD Dynamite, and there's even monsters that will burn you for more damage than Hinotama.
Yeah.
So yes, you are correct. Hinotama is terrible. Here's card number 7. Yeah, card number 7.
Alrighty.
Exodia the Forbidden One. If you have right leg of the Forbidden One, left leg of the Forbidden One, right arm of the Forbidden One, and left arm of the Forbidden One, in addition to this card in your hand, you win the duel.
That sounds really good.
So this is what's called a win condition. So if you meet a certain criteria of an effect to activate, it means you automatically win. But this card will really only be good if you're doing a tournament sized deck, if you're playing 40 cards only in your main deck and a whole lot of draw cards, or if you're playing a speed duel of about 20 to 30 cards, this card would be good. But because it is so specific in the things you have to do, and
Uh,
because this card and the 4 limbs are all limited to 1, it is very, very hard to get all of these in your hand at once.
yeah, it makes sense.
So, like I said, if you were playing small decks only with a lot of draw, this would be good. And I've seen Exodia pulled off on 1 turn in Master Duel before.
Oh, well.
It's not played a whole lot in tournaments, so it's okay. But if we're talking about tournament play, it's not good. I mean, hey, you've only got 1 completely wrong so far.
Okay.
Next we are on to this card. This card is Predaplant Verte Anaconda. It's a link monster, and you need 2 monsters with effects to summon it. You can target 1 face-up monster on the field. It becomes dark until the end of the turn. And you can pay 2,000 life points and send 1, quote, fusion or, quote, polymerization normal or quick play spell from your deck to the grave. This effect becomes that spell's effects when that card is activated. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn. You can only use each effect of Predaplant Verte Anaconda once per turn.
Hmm. I'm gonna say this one's bad.
What makes you say that?
I'm not quite sure.
Is it the last part where it says you can't special summon for the rest of the turn?
Yeah.
And the paid life points thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me explain what this does. So, does that help change your idea for this card?
I guess so.
So,
Hmm.
Would you like to reassess?
Yeah, this sounds pretty good then.
It is, and you're lucky I'm being nice to you, because if I kept your answer from the beginning, you would be wrong. This card is
Ah,
really, really, really good, and it is so good, in fact, that you say it for me.
it's banned, isn't it?
It just got banned this spring.
Oh,
So
jeez.
now all the fusion players are rattling their brains trying to find easier ways to fusion summon without Predaplant Verte Anaconda. So
Ah,
let's say that you don't have any way to go into your fusion card, like your fusion monster, right away. So for example,
Scatman's World.
okay, here is the ninth card we're looking at. Card of Sanctity. Banish all other cards you control and in your hand. Minimum one from each. So you need to have at least one card on the field and at least one card in your hand in order for you to activate this, and then draw until you have two cards in your hand.
I'm gonna say it's bad.
You are correct. Even though it lets you draw two, having to banish your entire field and your whole hand, even if you only have one card in your hand, is not worth it. Like,
Yeah.
nothing would make this card worth playing unless I was desperate and I was playing my banish deck, and if I wanted to just get rid of everything on my field and everything in my hand and hope that two of those cards that I draw is Grenmaju Deiza, which gains 400 attack for every banished card
Oh.
that I could, like every card that I have banished, and then it would give it a major power spike. That
Oh.
would be the only reason I would play this. But I would have to be so disgustingly desperate to try to get Grenmaju. I would not risk it.
Okay then.
So yeah, this is a bad, bad, bad card. It is bad. It is hilarious how bad it is. The only time you would try to do it is to juice Grenmaju up, but it's not even worth it at that point because you're just getting rid of all your cards. And
Yeah.
finally, we have the classic Blue Eyes White Dragon. No effect, just 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense, and level 8.
That sounds pretty good.
This card is bad.
Oh.
No effect. In terms of a raw attack monster, good.
Hmm.
But Blue Eyes White Dragon decks don't really rely on this guy much. What they rely on is Blue Eyes is really only good in its own archetype. Playing it in anything else is not good. And even then, like, you're
Okay.
not going to be putting Blue Eyes on the field to keep it on the field. You're going to be putting it there to go into your Synchros or your XZs or even Link sometimes. Blue Eyes will use Link monsters sometimes too, but um, yeah, Blue Eyes White Dragon, like vanilla, isn't good on its own. You need to play it with Blue
Oh,
Eyes and only in Blue Eyes. So, no point for that one. Let me tally up your
damn.
points. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then your 2.5s uh, makes it 8. So you got 8 out of 10. You did a really good job.
Yeah.
Very proud of you.
Thank you.
What did you think of this?
That was fun.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, I guess so.
Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you like this kind of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you thought. And if you guys have any suggestions for the cards we should use next time, leave them in the comments. I would more than love to use your guys' suggestions. And I'm sure Rack is going to have a lot of fun next time too. Rack,
Hmm.
do you have anything you want to say?
No.
Just join the Discord server, I guess. That'll be in the description.
Hmm.
Yeah, if you guys want a chance to meet me and Rack is one of my admins. He's super cool. We have a lot of time in this, a lot of fun time in the server. Play games like Yu-Gi-Oh, or just kind of hang out and chat and chill. So if you guys are interested in that, link to the Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you, bye, Rec.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.